Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs, here is your host, Dr. Francis Arlene.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience episode number 553. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Francis Arlene. What if the biggest thing holding your business back isn't money, talent, or experience, but one simple word? Today, we're talking with Ken Chester Jr., author of 2-Hour Entrepreneur and founder of TechMobility Productions. He shares how entrepreneurs can build a real business in just 2 hours a week and reveal the mindset that keeps too many great ideas from ever getting off the ground. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps? Share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you, your book, and your business.
I will give the short version. I've lived the book, actually. For many years, I have, in building my businesses, which have been predominantly in media, I've also helped a number of small businesses, given a lot of advice, some of it paid, some of it not. This idea actually came out of an individual last fall, 2 individuals that just the same advice came out my mouth. I said, you need 2 hours a week. And then I started to meditate on that and realize that in my life, time constraint, all of that, I took little bits of time to build this. Now, I've built 2 large national businesses. I built an automotive news service to daily newspapers in the late 90s and early 2000s. Of the 1,534 dailies that were active at that time, I was in over 150. And these are general interest daily city newspapers, everything from the Orange County Register to papers in Kalamazoo, Ann Arbor, East Coast, wherever. Then turned around, and when the Great Recession hit, reinvented myself on radio, launched my radio programs and a radio syndicate across the country. And now we're on almost 100 stations nationwide. Did that while at the same time trying to balance church, family, grandpa, my father, helping my son-in-law run his business. It's just a matter of sharing. I've been very busy.
Let's talk about, did you marry entrepreneurship or did entrepreneurship marry you?
I think I was born with it.
Okay.
That further, I have always wanted my own business since I was a little boy. And even as a young boy, we were doing things. We would have little neighborhood auctions. We'd sell junk and bring in refreshments. The whole neighborhood would come in. I would sell all occasion cards door to door in the 70s in New England, of all places, and sold so many, I want a bike. So I've always been that way. My parents, who were not college educated, were trying to pivot to entrepreneurship. They knew it was important. They valued education, and they wanted to make sure all 5 of us got an education and we all have college degrees. But they weren't able to take that next step consistently. So it was always in me.
What is something that we don't know about entrepreneurship that we should know?
It doesn't take money. That is the hardest lesson. My first business came to me on a plane flight over northwestern Indiana. The company I was working for, a Fortune 500 company here based in Iowa, was consolidating. I was driving over 100 miles round trip to work a day. I had a young wife, 3 young kids at home, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I don't want to transfer. I have no intentions of transferring. I'm putting out resumes everywhere. Nothing's happening.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there with a Wall Street Journal. I'm just kind of meditating. And a little voice said, start your own business. And then I did what everybody does. But, P-U-T, I did it. But I don't have any money. I don't have any time. I don't have any connection. I'm broke. What am I going to do? But the idea wouldn't go away. And I started scribbling. And that was my first company. So yes, if I was to say the most important thing to anyone, I don't care what business you're in, money is not the gate. It's not the thing that will keep you back. It is what you believe you can attain and looking at the opportunities now more than even when we first went into business, Dr. Francis. And what I'm sure you have stories of how you overcame, I overcame with so many fewer resources that are available. So yeah, money's not it.
Talk about the 2-hour entrepreneur and what is the basis for that?
It goes back to my first business. I was driving 100 miles a day to work, round trip. I had 3 small kids at home, active in my church, deacon in my church, as a matter of fact. So working full time, married, kids, driving a commute, didn't have time. And I found that it's not how much time you have, it's the focus and consistency of the time you spend. Most people are not consistent. It does not take 40 hours a week or giving up 2 nights a week of no sleep to build a business. For most of us who have that idea, and these are the people to us, we all have ideas, man, that one great idea that we keep getting, man, if I had the time, if I had the money, if. Well, Ken's here to tell you, you do. Take some time. Look at your schedule. Carve out 2 hours, just 2 hours. That's over 100 hours a year. I mean, that's most of a week, 1 year. And actually, if you're looking at 9 to 5, it's 2.5 weeks of work. 1 year, 2 hours. Make the time. For some of us, it might be after we put the kids to bed, we've got some quiet time. It might be a Saturday morning, a Saturday afternoon, a Sunday after church, late Sunday afternoon. Take that time and just pull it together and see what you come up with. My book is designed to take you through that process across 6 pillars to see if there's some there in 2 hours. And in fact, as an added bonus, I've also developed a template. Now, I tell people you don't need the Notion template. But if you're a person that likes structure and organization, that's added. Do you need it? No. Will it help you? Yes. Totally your call. The book is sufficient on its own.
And how would they get the book?
Several different ways. You can go to kennethjchester.com/2-hour entrepreneur. If you go to the website, just click on where it says the book in the header. It'll bring you right where you need to be. It's also where you can get the template if you want it. It will also be available on Amazon as an EPUB starting June 15th, next Monday. If you just got to have soft cover, and some of us just do, I'm very tactile like that myself, the soft cover will be out in Amazon, available 2 weeks after that. You should be able to get it in Apple Books, should be able to get it also in Goodreads if that's where you go. We will also have it if you're a librarian or bookstore type. You can also pick it up in Ingram Spark has it. So indie bookstores should be able to get it too.
And talk about the process of writing the book. Did you self-publish the book? Did you
Yes.
hire someone to help you?
No.
And why did you write the book?
I wrote the book because of that grain of an idea after the last person I helped. And it said, I started thinking over my life. I started looking at her case. In her case, she's a published children's author, married, 2 boys, full-time job. She was stuck, wanted to get past stuck, couldn't get past stuck. And she was really who I had in mind, and in one of the people who read one of the draft copies and totally loved it. I said, here, let me know what you think. And she gave me some very helpful critique, along with another friend of mine who made the book phenomenal in helping me to channel it together. But basically, I wanted to codify what I've been doing for the last 40 years, which is giving this advice. I want to put it in somebody's hands and says, you know what? All those other books assume, and they're trying to get me to spend even more money I don't have. And I'm not even to the point, if I even know that I've got an idea that's got legs. I need a way to find that out. My book will help you get there. You will not build $1 million business with this book, but it will get you to a foundation where you can make that decision.
Advice you wish you had followed?
It's a lot of it. Which one? Calm down, relax, trust the process. I'm at a point in my life now where I trust what I have learned, but of course, that's come through trial, error, experience, faith. We are capable of much more than we give ourselves credit for, even in our weakest state. That is what I would share with people. Trust yourself.
Ken, what is your zone of genius?
I love business. I love business, the give and take of business, the cutting through and asking the hard questions of business. One of my ventures is a marketing company that I started this year. And my client is a young Jamaican brother, genius. I call him a product development savant. His train of thought is so crystal clear, it's refreshing. But even him, I have to walk him through certain things where he realizes that is not his strong suit. But I can bring him right to it. And he says, yeah, I see this. I understand it. I totally get what you're saying. And we make those changes to be clearer, more succinct. So I would say my ability to get to the point, cut through the noise.
And I want to ask you in reference to AI. You talked about technology.
Mm-hmm.
AI is trending. What is your take on AI and how are you implementing AI?
I am neck deep in AI. I love it. Here's the thing. Like every new shiny bauble of technology, and you can go back all the way back to the Industrial Revolution of 1750, same thing. AI has a cycle. Right now, it's the shiny bauble that everybody's running towards and everybody's talking about, and we're starting to see the pushback. Here is the silver lining in AI, as far as I'm concerned. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us folks of color to level the playing field for pennies, because you don't need all of the expertise that you wouldn't have had access to even 5 years ago. You don't have to be an engineer or a professional coder. They call it vibe coding for a reason. Much the same way I would talk to you or you would talk to me, you can talk to the AI. And there's so many different models that do so many different things. I mean, I do so much, and it allows me to use it as a lever. If time is the currency, AI and pennies on the dollar is the lever that gives you the leverage. It's going to shake out. There's clouds on the horizon. The Chinese have figured out how to do this for pennies on the dollar. There's going to be a really nasty day of reckoning for the billions of dollars and all these ginormous data centers they're building. They're going to find out in 2 to 3 years they weren't necessary. And it's going to get ugly. But that's been the case in every single, if you look at history, because I'm a bit of a historian, and the cycle is always the same. But for us, forget the noise, learn AI, test it. You don't even have to spend money for some of the free ones and just play with it. That's what I did. A friend of mine turned me on to it 4 years ago. I poo-pooed it. I tiptoed into it. Now I'm neck deep, and it just gives me leverage, unbelievable leverage. And that's where I'm at. But I will say this. I am not in a favor of turning AI loose. I don't believe in that. I believe in, and I've reported on this in my radio shows, I talk about human in the loop. I take a very tight control of how I use it, either how I feed it with information or how I get information from it. And occasionally I will challenge it. And there are keywords you use to keep it in line. And sometimes you literally have to tell it, don't hallucinate. Literally have to tell it that.
Right, absolutely. What problem exists in the world today, Ken, that you would like to solve?
Generational wealth. I believe that that is my calling for the rest of my life, working to help people of color lay the ground foundation for generational wealth. We are at the minimum. We're 400 years behind in everything. We're 150 to 200 years behind in generational wealth. We buried my dad about 8 years ago, and he was literally a statistic, to the penny statistic, They tell you that a Black family ends up with $20,000 net wealth when everything's liquidated. House, car, land, everything. That's exactly where my parents were. $20,000. That's it. They said that's 1/8 of a white family at 160,000. Generational wealth. That is the one problem that I'm committing the remainder of my life to try. I can't say solve, but I can certainly pour the footings and the groundwork for the generations to build upon to work their way out of it. And I believe that's my calling.
And how are you making impact in doing that?
Many different ways. Here in Des Moines, I started a minority business roundtable to bring minority businesses together to do business with each other. I've tried to bring in resources in the community that they can avail themselves to leverage and grow their businesses. I am a minority business enterprise with the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Our particular council is the North Central Council based out of Milwaukee. I'm a very active member there. I am also a founder of the Black Automotive Writers Group. During the George Floyd incident, we took all the nation's automakers to task over some shortcomings we felt relative to opportunities in the automotive industry, both advertising and career paths. And that, an offshoot of our group, has been working with historically Black colleges and universities in their the Driving Force program that several of my comrades have started at a number of Black schools in the East to forward that, to make ways to help gain ways into the good paying jobs of the auto industry, both in PR and advertising and elsewhere. And I've been making progress. So wherever, and I'm just the kind of guy that whenever I can make introductions that I feel will help both parties, business-wise and otherwise, we make that happen.
And even with a lot of changes taking place with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it appears the attack on a lot of minority businesses or whatever, you're still able to find that you're making inroads in and making impact?
It's slower, yes, but you have to understand my background. I grew up in New England. My family goes back 300 years in Massachusetts. Contrary to what New England and Massachusetts wants to tell the rest of the world, it's one of the most racist places in the world. Makes the South look totally friendly. Most racist parts of the South are not nearly as bad as where I grew up. What did that do? It taught me how to thrive regardless, that I come in assuming a hostile situation, that is what is waiting for me. And I can choose to rise above it, or I can choose to be a victim. Oh, it would certainly be easier if it was fair. It's not. I got a decision. Life is too short to sit and cry about it. My parents taught us, yes, racism is real. Yes, it is, totally. And we dealt with it all the time, still do. The question is, you can work this to your advantage if you want to, or you can expect them to help you. But if you assume that help ain't coming ever, gives you a different perspective on things.
What was that aha moment, Ken, that you knew your business was going to be successful?
I'm going to have to say the first one. That was when I made a presentation, now 31 years ago, to the news committee of the Iowa Newspaper Association. I thought I could have them syndicate my column that I was writing at the time. They didn't, but a little voice said, you should talk to the head of the chairman of that committee, who ran a small newspaper in a county seat about 90 miles from Des Moines. And I did. Best thing I ever did. And he's still a friend of mine, long retired, still a friend. The advice he gave me allowed me to grow a nationwide business. When he said, I'll sign up, that was my aha moment. And it taught me something that I continue to this day. And that is, all you need is the first sale. If you can sell it to one, it's not family. And sell it to one, then it makes sense to the second person and the third person and the 10th person. But the concept has to work for one. And when I got it right, where it worked for him, that was my moment.
Excellent. What is the best decision you have made as a leader?
embracing technology. For all the work I've done, it's probably the most important inflection point in the last 20 years of my life. I would say it this way, and somebody pointed it out, and I forget who, and I think I may have read it. What makes technology useful for me today is the fact that I've got 35, 40 years of context to apply against it. It's that context which makes it extremely valuable to me because I just don't take what it says. I can look at the output with context and react accordingly, accept it, change it, deny it, challenge it, but I have something to balance it against. And that makes it more valuable because then it also allows me to be more strategic. And I think it makes me smarter because it helps to channel my mind and become more efficient in my thought process and how I do things.
I'm going to step back. 2 points you made. You talked about you need the first sale. Mm-hmm. And you also stated that's basically the proof of concept. And you mentioned not from a family member. Mm-hmm. Would also quantify that with not a family and a friend or just family?
I would modify it to family and close friends. Okay. I mean, obviously, they want to see you successful. They're going to buy it anyway. I mean, what mother's not going to support her son or daughter or grandpa? Grandpa, I just did this. Buy it for me. Or a friend of mine who just published a book. He has been working with credit unions forever. I've always wanted to support him. He put a book out. I immediately bought it. Do I need the book? No, I don't. Will I get something from it? I guess I'll get around to read it. But I bought it to support him. That's not going to give him the feedback he needs in terms of, is this book hitting the mark for the audience I've intended?
Absolutely. And then the second thing you had mentioned, or a question I wanted to ask you, you mentioned over 30 years you've been an entrepreneur. And you also mentioned prior to that you had a job. So you've been a full-time entrepreneur for how many years?
That has come and went. I would say we were full-time for about 10 years, from about 98 to 2008. Then a recession happened and we kind of crawled around. Back full-time now, probably getting my life refocused here in the last year or so. So I would say in the last 35 years, I would say probably a good 15 years-ish, 15 to 20 years of that.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
Somebody who made a difference. I mean, I don't need titles, but I would like to think that I helped move the needle or at least laid the groundwork for what comes next.
And speaking of needle, what do you need right now that you don't have to move the needle forward?
Customers for my new book.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of why I'm here. Anybody that goes to my websites, I actually have 3. I'm kind of like you, Dr. Francis. I got stuff going on. But I think right now, for folks who hear and watch this podcast, I think the greatest thing would be consider the book. I have it at a lower launch price right now. There will eventually be a hardcover, but I want to get everything launched first, and it will go for more. Soft cover will be in about 3 weeks. Soft and EPUB will be next week. Go to my website. You can get it now, today. You don't even have to wait. And like I said, that's kennethjchester.com. And they can just click in the header, the book, and it will take them right there. And then they can decide whether the book's enough or they want to come back and get the template or buy them together. They do not have to. That would be helpful.
Thank you. I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and they've inspired you so much. Who is that person and what are you saying to that person?
There are many, but I'll pick one, probably because the main reason why I'm here in Iowa. He was a man from the streets that God plucked from the streets and established him and led him to Des Moines to start a work. And it was hard. It was rocky. He had to go without. He had a wife and 4 kids. He had to go to work full time. And he built a work. He wasn't experienced. He wasn't a trained person of the seminary. But God had a work for him to do here. And he started to build a work over 50 years ago. And as he built that work, and he used what he had learned from the streets, and he continued his education. He grew in stature and he helped thousands of people. He was the sort of person that if he looked at you, he knew more about you than he knew about yourself. He just knew, kind of like you. Yeah, anybody that says, what you say here, yeah, you look and you know somebody. This individual was so humble but bold that they knew and they trusted. And the faith that they would put in you to do a work, even when you didn't see it in yourself a lot of times. And come to find out, he didn't miss. By the time he passed, he had built a worldwide ministry, a 24/7, basically satellite broadcast network that's now on the internet, churches all over, not just the country, but the world. His son's the pastor now, and has left a legacy of help and service and encouragement and kind of led by example. I would say probably him more than anybody. There's a lot of other people, but to pick it, it would be him that has had the impact on my life, my family, calling me out when I went astray, and yet in love and in mercy, and just a phenomenal human being.
And say his name.
Bishop Jeremiah Reed.
How do you feel about the person you have become, Ken?
I like him a lot better these days. The beautiful part about getting older with knowledge, if you let it, is to be more secure and based in that things that bothered you 20, 30 years ago, if you're a faith-based person like I am, and I believe you are, you've learned to experience what God will and will not do. And you know he's got you, which gives you a certain basis. I'm a Sunday school teacher every Sunday, so I stand flat-footed, and it doesn't bother me, and it gives me a certain comfort and confidence that I like. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I roll with the punches these days instead of getting riled up about every little thing. And that's not to say that don't get upset or depressed or concerned, but let's just say I'm a lot more even keeled than I was when I first started. And I like that.
If you lost everything today, and you had to rebuild in 30 days, what industry and why?
That depends if the rent's due. If the rent's due, I'm a very practical kind of guy. And I would probably walk into something that I've done before. I could make a phone call and probably walk back into the local grocery business today, maybe even as an assistant or department manager for a chain up here in the upper Midwest because of the reputation I've left. I wouldn't have to go back to work as a clerk. And if bills were pressing that I had to pay and meet bills in the next 2 weeks, like feed the family, pay the rent, that's where I'm going. Because I don't need an interview, I make a phone call and I could be back to work in no time.
What is the biggest obstacle that you have overcome in reference to building your business?
Having more faith in myself. When I built my newspaper service, there was a period of time that I didn't think my content was good enough for a newspaper above a certain size. Fortunately, I got to a point where I challenged that and found out I was so wonderfully wrong. But yeah, there was a period where I felt newspapers of 40,000 or more in circulation that I wasn't good enough. And as it turns out, I was actually much better. My personal favorite was in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was in both papers at the same time every week. I was in the Star Tribune and the Pioneer Press. I was also on the West Coast in the Orange County Register. I was in the Sacramento Bee. I was in papers all over the place. I was in non-daily papers within 30, 40 miles of the Hamptons and on the eastern shore of Maryland. Once I got over realizing my content was just as good, if not better, than the major syndicates were putting out.
And you mentioned radio and print. Are you still doing anything with your media companies now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I produce 3 different radio shows, 2 different podcasts every single week. And in fact, I lost 3 years due to COVID in growing our radio network. So I'm actually practicing what I preach right now in expanding my radio business, which is, excuse me, I have kind of redone my marketing, and I market three ways. I send an oversized postcard, and I hand write the address, the name, the program director, whoever it is. I look up the information. I send 10 of those a week. 10, not 100, not 1,000. Because in emails, in postcards, oh, you want a blitz? No, 10. Here's why. 10 brand new go out. And in fact, 10 will go out today. In fact, here's one of them addressed. The 10 I sent last week will get an email from me. The 10 I sent the week before that will get a phone call from me this week. So even though I'm sending out 10 new ones, I'm actually working with 30, but every week. And it's working because I believe that this was the time that media had to pivot. And my content was going to be the perfect pivot for them. And I am getting to states that I never was able to get into before, and just growing. And they're welcoming me with open arms. But here's something else that I find that I'm not sure if I can reconcile this. You would think, because on the envelopes, on this I send out, it's my beautiful picture. They know who I am. The majority of my client stations are far right wing AM radio stations, and always have been. Out of the 100, I probably have maybe 4 or 5 you consider progressive. And it's something I've never been able to answer, even my newspaper days. I haven't been able to break that. Don't know why. But sometimes you have to test what you think is true and test your boundaries. That's the other thing I learned. In the newspaper business, I tested it. Now I'm testing it every week, and it's growing. It's working. And I'm still doing that. I'm producing, because I produce podcasts and all of that, and voiceovers, commercials, and all of that nature. I do have a production arm to that called TechMobility Studios. I've got my speaking business, which this book is tied to, that we'll be using to make myself available for folks who want to take this to another level before a group of folks. And then I have Streetwise Marketing. Streetwise Marketing is kind of an offshoot to all of this other that I've been doing to help people with no money or very little money. Because I think that's really the market cap right now. I think that there are people out there that got these great ideas, but folks are expecting them to drop $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $5,000. That's not happening. That is absolutely positively not happening. If you're us, you're working full time, or you have a significant other that's carrying the load while you're trying to, juggling kids, obligations, and trying to nurture this idea. In the early days, occasionally, me and the missus had some, how do I put this gently, some very strong conversations about that required some adjustment on my end. I want to help us. If we're going to build generational wealth, then we have to meet people where they're at. And that's kind of my group of projects and companies. That's what they're designed to do.
Ken, talk about your first wound you experienced as a boss or a leader, and what was your takeaway?
Betrayal, which is why I learned me and corporate America don't get along. I learned early that, and I still believe it's true, corporate America does not know what to do with a well-presented, articulate, passionate person of color in the corporate workplace. They take our passion for agitation or anger. They dismiss our suggestions and ideas of just, or worse, somebody else takes them and takes credit for them. I learned after a few times that happened that, I don't think this is the place for me, and would be kind of the guiding light towards getting away from it. But I did learn I could lead anybody through anything. And I think that was the last lesson in the last 2 years, where I was able to turn a group around to the point where we were exceeding our targets and beating them hands down with the same crew that up till then was not doing that.
What is your most costly lesson you've learned in business?
Think before you jump. Think about spending that money before you spend it. I've probably spent money I shouldn't have spent thinking that it would be helpful, finding out very quickly it wasn't. That would probably be the number one lesson. Maybe do a little more research and maybe exhale first before you make that move.
Absolutely. Who are your top two influencers or mentors, and
Wow.
what lessons do they teach you?
That's an interesting one because I talk to a lot of people and I read a lot. And my reading is kind of informs me of direction. And I say this unabashedly, I pray a lot. I spend time each week. I set aside some time every Monday in prayer. The last year, I was led to go back to basics, that I felt I had spread myself too thin. I didn't feel that I was being effective in some groups that I was doing out of church, some organizations in church. And I just backed up from everything and just get back to basics. So while I don't think it's mainly a person or people per se, because again, I'm reading everything and I'm like a sponge, I would say mainly probably from what I read, because I try to read, well, I spend at least 2 hours a day reading. When I start in the morning, I'm reading news, I'm reading technical clips from this, that, and the other. So it's a lot of information that I'm gathering that I am assessing and looking at. Every now and then, I'll get a tidbit that will register that said, oh, that's important. This one, actually two tidbits in the last year that I kind of shaped what I'm doing now. Unfortunately, last summer, I was back east for a funeral. I was waiting at the airport to catch my flight home. I bought a book that's called Objections. Out of everything in that book, he said this: don't present yourself to your potential customers like everybody else. Then a voice over here from something else I was doing said, postcards are it. I said, I spent $135, designed postcards, bought 500 custom postcards, and changed my sales approach, pulling those from two different directions. One more piece of advice, again, reading, said, if you want to improve the output of the AI you are using, feed the same prompts to different models. Okay, and I do that. And it was a learning experience because now I know what's the word I want? The nuance between Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, all of which I use every day, but for very different reasons. But I understand the nuance and what I'm going to get from them. I would have never thought of that. Or I will take something from one output and feed it to the other one to tweak it and see where it's going. So I'm not sure so much it was an influencer, but I would say the information that I surround myself with has definitely helped.
And speaking of AI, have you developed any agents?
I've almost drawn the line at that. And my belief in that is because of human in the loop. And I understand that you can design an agent to a point. I want to remain in control of how I feed it and how it functions. Now, I have built a template for some repetitive work, and it took some tweaking over time because what I needed from it was so tight that I didn't think I could do it consistently to meet the parameters that I had set for it. So I built a template in ChatGPT that I use every week, and I will use it this week too to develop, but I'm feeding it the information so I know what it's getting, and I compare its output against what I'm looking at. I keep it from trying to hallucinate or pull it from somewhere else. So I have it really tight. I haven't gone all in on the AI agents as yet. I see the pros, I see the cons. I'm not there.
Okay. Ken, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I'd like you to ask the question and answer it.
That's a good question because I think you've covered a lot of everything I would have asked. I think the only other question to ask is, where do we go from here? And I'll go, Dr. Francis, I'm glad you asked me that question. In the same vein of the book I just wrote, I am toying with a marketing book. I already have the working title, and it builds on what I've already established. And I'm going to share the title with you and the audience right here, even though there's not a book behind it yet. But for me and for my motivation, that is what I kind of needed to keep myself focused. And it's called Launch Broke, Market Smarter. Get seen, get sales, stay open. That's the next great idea. Because again, people who are just trying to nurture, you think you have to have all this money, I don't have money to hire an advertising firm. I don't have money to go to an influencer. I don't have money to get help. Yet there is a lot you can do. First thing, people got to understand the difference between what is marketing versus what is advertising. That's very important. And people get them conflated and get them confused. And then they get lost. There's a lot of help out there that don't cost them a dime. And in fact, my marketing website gives them some freebies to start with. I think that would be the only question I would ask at this point.
And what I'd like to do is challenge the audience. If you're listening and you like that title, why don't you reach out to Ken directly and let him know your thoughts? Find him online, or once you listen to the interview, definitely you can post, but let him know if he's on the right track with his title. Ken, we've come to the part of the interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
I am.
Your first job?
Dairy farm.
You relax doing what?
Driving or reading.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Anita Baker.
Your favorite dance song?
Pass.
Your favorite comfort food?
Lobster mac and cheese.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Can you classify coffee as a food?
Some people do.
Every morning.
Okay. Workout or hit the couch?
Couch.
Ken Chester Jr., thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you, to do business with you. Feel free to leave all your social media handles and share again where they can pick up the book. We want it to go number 1.
Oh, I'd love that. They can pick up the book, KennethJChester.com. Click the book link on the header on the homepage. If you're wanting to talk radio or need podcast support, you can go to TechMobility.show. You can reach me directly, one of 2 emails, info@KennethJChester.com or ken@techmobility.show. And certainly, if you love podcasting, and I know you do because you're listening to Dr. Francis, you can also hear me on Tech Mobility Topics podcast or the Tech Mobility podcast. We're on 20 different platforms. Do remember, Tech Mobility is one word. Put it into, you will not find me. Tech Mobility, one word, and you can find me there.
Thank you, Ken. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.